But here are some of the highlights. The bill ensures that neither the state nor local governments can close business or keep kids out of in-person instruction unless they satisfy demanding and continuous justifications. One of the things I think has been so problematic about this is that there are different policies that have been enacted, particularly in other parts of the country, different restrictions or mandates, and they're done. And then even when the evidence refutes the effectiveness or the need or the justification for them, they continue on, and sometimes they're even re-upped.
Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida blazing the trail back to normalcy, back to freedom once again, saying you're not going to be able to keep doing this, petty local and city tyrants. You're not allowed to just decide you're going to take emergency powers into your hands and then continue them even when you said you won't based on the data. This has been happening all over the country. DeSantis says in Florida, no more of that nonsense. Not happening, not allowed. So that's good news, to be sure. We have at least one state where it seems there's some degree of sanity. We have one state where there's some willingness, it seems to me, to be able to look at things as they are instead of through this constantly politicized negative lens of what about what Fauci says? I mean, if you listen to Fauci, you're going to be living the rest of your life in a closet terrified of going outside. It's nuts. DeSantis is not the only one, fortunately. There's the governor of Oklahoma who isn't even waiting. DeSantis said in July that all goes into effect. No vaccine passports, no orders coming up based on emergency power, arbitrary orders from city or county governments in Florida. And over in Oklahoma, the governor is saying, as of tomorrow, we're opening up.
Here's what the data in Oklahoma shows. Our 7-day average of new cases is down 94% from its peak. And our new cases per capita are some of the lowest in the country. Hospitalizations, they're down 90%, and they've been stable for 2 months. We've administered more than 2.5 million doses of the COVID vaccine. The data shows COVID-19 is no longer an emergency. That's why I'm withdrawing my emergency declaration effective tomorrow, Tuesday, May 4th.
Here we are, effective today. That was yesterday. So we are seeing states that are looking to go back to normal as soon as they can, and they're making declarations to that effect. Isn't this a point of shared and universal happiness? Shouldn't every person in America say, wow, great. You mean that there is a return to normalcy plan, that we're taking steps? We're not just being promised at some arbitrary point way, way, way in the future, maybe you can start walking around without a mask on all the time. No, we're being told this is going to happen sooner in some states. Other states, though, and other localities are dug in. It's almost like this has become a quasi-religious belief for them, or this is, when it comes to lockdowns and mitigation measures and all the rest of the COVID protocols that have been jammed down our throats for over a year, it's almost like this is really a religious belief for them. This is what they're most comfortable with. They don't want to let this go. Here is a report actually about Brookline, Massachusetts, where the state of Massachusetts has said no more outdoor mask mandate. But Brookline is keeping its mandate, and we get to hear why.
We're talking about outdoors, though, and one of the things that we've heard for the last year is follow the science, follow the science. And you know you're what, like 18 times less likely to catch COVID outdoors? The positivity rate in Brookline now is, I think, 0.5%. It's really low. So isn't following the science at this point, wouldn't it be lifting the mask mandate?
Well, I would say we followed the science in the beginning when we instituted the mask mandate, when CDC said that asymptomatic people didn't have to wear masks. But also you have to look at it, we did hear the science that it was temperature controlled as well. So if COVID is more likely to persist in colder climates, right now it's 48 degrees outside.
That's not an answer, right? But this is what you get. You have these authoritarians and bureaucracies across the country, and they just say, follow the science, as though that's the argument ender. It's, oh, okay, in that case, the whole thing is absolutely absurd. There's also contradictory messages coming from people who are very senior in the science or scientific community. You got Dr. Osterholm, who is the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research. He's out there telling people, and he was a senior advisor to the Biden administration in the transition about COVID. He's saying if you're vaccinated, go out and party. No, I mean, he's actually saying that.
We still want to be very careful. We still have a lot of work to do. But if you're among vaccinated people, party hard. Party hard. You know, invite people over to your house. Do family-related things. But get vaccinated. If there was ever a time to want to incentivize people to get vaccinated, it's now. Because if you do, you can basically protect yourself and have all the kind of socialization that you want to do.
Party hard, he says. Now, granted, that is for vaccinated people, but is that a message that you're hearing for the vaccinated in general, from the CDC or from the Biden administration? No, in fact, Joe Biden, as you know, continues here. We've got him. This is a photo recently after the CDC guidance. He's still walking outside with a mask on. Now, it's quite clear. It was quite clear for all of us after the CDC came out that you don't need a mask outside if you're vaccinated. You've never needed a mask outside if you're vaccinated. The whole idea is absurd, yet Biden and Joe Biden are wearing masks. Why? Because this is an identifier. This is about political tribe. This is about, look at me, I'm one of the good mask people. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, not really about the science so much. Oh, speaking of the science, former President Jimmy Carter had a visit from Joe Biden, and you'll notice that I just showed you a photo of Biden outside. Here's inside, indoors. I don't know how old Jimmy Carter is or his wife, but I mean, first of all, as people have pointed out, they look like, you know, Frodo and Mrs. Frodo. They look tiny in these photos because of the angle, I guess. But they're very, very elderly, even older than Joe Biden, and no masks in the photo, up close indoors. So I'm sorry, they'll wear Joe Biden will wear masks for the cameras outside, but when he goes inside with a couple of very elderly people up close, no masks. What's that all about, folks? It's all arbitrary nonsense to these tyrants, don't you see? They don't really care. It didn't really matter what the reality of the different risk profiles are they're dealing with at any point in time. What matters is whether they're in control and they feel good about themselves. Does this advance their power? Is this an opportunity for virtue signaling? Those are the questions that matter under these circumstances to Democrats. All this other stuff about the science. Yeah, please. Oh, here's Biden telling you today, just today, listen to the science, the CDC.
There's a lot of misinformation out there, but there's one fact I want every American to know. People who are not fully vaccinated can still die every day from COVID-19.
We know people die every day from a lot of things too, but we don't shut down all of society. Here's more of Biden from earlier today.
Our goal by July 4th is to have 70% of adult Americans with at least one shot and 160 million Americans fully vaccinated. That means giving close to 100 million shots, some first shots, others second shots, over the next 60 days.
Do you think that at that point they'll finally relent on all the control measures that are in place? Do you think you can go into a grocery store and not have to breathe, your own CO2 back into your mouth the whole time? You think that's that? Nope, they're not going to, even if they get to those numbers. And that's the problem. This is what Ron DeSantis is trying to prevent in Florida. Even when we hit the benchmarks they set, they just move the benchmarks. They say, oh, it's still dangerous, still dangerous. As if the things they're doing, as if the lockdowns and the mask mandates protected us in the first place. We never really locked down in this country. You always have to remember that. We always did some version of a partial lockdown with lots of people who were considered essential workers and other carve-outs for folks to be able to keep going into their office and doing their jobs, and the virus kept spreading. It mostly spreads in the home, as you know, where the government, fortunately to this point at least, doesn't have quite the same kind of power to tell you what you can do, although they wish they could change that, as you know. The Biden administration is a disaster in so many ways, and the messaging around vaccines and around reopen, yet another place where you could point to enormous failure.